Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're really digging into a pretty intense Associated Press report.
Yeah, it really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It does. You've got Ukraine claiming this bold strike deep inside Russia, hitting an airbase.
Hmm.
And at the exact same time, Russia is just unleashing, hundreds of drones across Ukraine.
It's a massive escalation on both sides, it seems.
Right. So there's a lot to unpack. Our mission really in this deep dive is to pull out the key stuff from these military moves and also the diplomatic chats that are shaping this war, which is, over 3 years old now.
And what's fascinating, I think, isn't just the headlines themselves, it's the immediate effects, what these actions actually mean on the ground.
Yeah.
We're seeing military dynamics shift fast, and while the diplomats are scrambling to keep up.
Okay.
So we'll break down the specifics, look at the strategy behind them, what it means for everyone involved, and any hope for things calming down.
Okay, let's start with that first big headline then. Ukraine hitting inside Russia. What specifics do we have on that attack?
Okay. So according to Ukraine's military general staff, their forces hit the Borisoglepsk airbase. That's in Russia's Voronezh region. Happened this past Saturday.
And why Borisoglepsk? What's special about that base?
Well, that's a key point. It's home to some of Russia's top tactical aircraft. We're talking Su-34, Su-35S, and Su-30SM fighter jets.
So frontline stuff.
Exactly. The backbone of their air power, really, used for bombing, for controlling the air. And Ukraine's general staff, they specifically said they hit a depot with glide bombs.
Glide bombs.
Yeah.
Those are the ones they can launch from further away, right?
Precisely. Regular bombs, but with wings and guidance, lets the plane stay safer further back. They also said they hit a training aircraft and, quote, possibly other aircraft.
And Russia's reaction? Any immediate comment?
Interestingly, no, at least not immediately. Russian officials didn't comment on that specific attack right away.
So, okay, Russia hasn't confirmed the damage, but what does this kind of strike signal about Ukraine's strategy? Hitting deep like that.
Well, it's doing a couple of things, I think. First, it's obviously trying to degrade Russia's military capacity, take out valuable assets.
Makes sense.
But second, it's also psychological and political. It shows Ukraine can reach deep into Russia, hit high-value targets.
Which might force Moscow to react.
Could do. Might force them to pull resources back, maybe air defenses, maybe other assets to protect their own territory, stretch them thinner.
Away from the front lines in Ukraine, potentially.
Potentially. And, this isn't exactly out of the blue. Ukraine claimed something similar just last month.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. They said they destroyed more than 40 Russian planes at several airfields deep inside Russia. Again, a drone attack. So there's definitely a pattern emerging here, a consistent effort to extend their reach.
Okay, so Ukraine's pushing its reach, but as we said, Russia's definitely not sitting back. This aerial assault sounds, unprecedented in scale.
The numbers are quite something. Ukraine's Air Force reported Russia fired 322 drones and decoys just overnight into Saturday.
322, that's a lot. How many did they stop?
They reported shooting down 157, and another 135 were, quote, lost, which likely means they were electronically jammed.
Jammed, okay. And decoys, too, you said. What's the point of those?
Right. Decoys are basically there to trick or overwhelm the air defenses, make it harder to spot the real threats, or just, make Ukraine use up valuable interceptor missiles.
Ah, okay. So where were these aimed? Any specific region?
Yeah, the main target for that big barrage seemed to be the western Komilty region, though interestingly, the governor there, Serhiy Tyurin, said no damage or casualties.
But that wasn't the only attack.
No, not at all. The night before, Kyiv got hit with what was called the largest aerial assault since Russia's invasion began.
Wow. And that one caused casualties.
Tragically, yes. 2 killed and 31 wounded in Kyiv from that assault. And we also saw photos actually, of emergency services fighting a fire in the Kharkiv region, so other areas were definitely hit too.
Okay, so intense attacks from Russia. Now, on the flip side, what about Ukraine's drones hitting Russia? Did Russia report, significant impacts during the same period?
Yes, they did. Russia's defense ministry put out numbers, too. They claim they shot down 94 Ukrainian drones overnight into Saturday.
94.
And then another 45 later on Saturday morning and early afternoon.
And did any get through? Any damage reported in Russia?
There was some. Local officials in the Saratov region, in a city called Engels, reported 25 apartments damaged by Ukrainian drones.
Oh.
And near Moscow, they reported shooting down 4 Ukrainian drones approaching the city on Saturday. That actually caused them to halt air traffic briefly at Sheremetyevo Airport, just as a precaution, they said.
Right. So it feels like this whole exchange, this tit for tat with drones and strikes,
Sure.
it really ramps things up, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And if you connect it to the bigger picture, like the AP report explicitly says, this level of bombing, this intensity from both sides, has really dashed hopes for a breakthrough in efforts to end the more than 3-year-old war.
So it suggests both sides are maybe digging in militarily rather than looking for talks right now.
That certainly seems to be the implication. More military pressure, not immediate negotiation, seems to be the focus.
Which brings us to the diplomatic side, because that's happening too, right? The report mentioned a pretty significant call, President Zelensky and U.S. President Trump.
Yes, that call happened on Friday. President Zelensky himself described it as very important and productive.
Important and productive. What did they talk about, reportedly?
Well, the topics included bolstering Ukraine's air defenses, which is obviously crucial given the drone attacks we just discussed.
Absolutely.
Also, the idea of potential joint U.S.-Ukraine weapons production, and then sort of broader U.S.-led efforts to end the war.
And what did President Trump say about the call?
His public remarks were maybe a bit more reserved. He said, "We had a very good call, I think." Simple as that.
Okay, I think. And what about ending the fighting? Did he offer anything concrete there?
Well, when he was asked directly about ending the fighting, his response was quite ambiguous. He said, "I don't know. I can't tell you whether or not that's going to happen."
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not exactly a firm commitment, is it?
I think-
Especially when you pair it with other news about U.S. aid.
Exactly. And that's the crucial context here. The report notes the U.S. has actually paused some shipments of military aid to Ukraine,
Paused. What kind of aid?
including crucial air defense missiles, the very things they need to counter those massive drone attacks.
Wow. Okay, so the U.S. pauses key aid. Trump is ambiguous about ending the war. What does that mean for Ukraine's other allies? Europe, for instance.
Well, it puts them in a tough spot. Ukraine's main European backers are now, quote, considering how they can help pick up the slack.
Pick up the slack from the U.S. pause. That's a big ask, isn't it?
It's a huge challenge. The U.S. has historically been the largest provider of aid. So Zelensky, perhaps recognizing this, has also talked about plans to really build up Ukraine's own domestic arms industry.
Right, making their own weapons.
Yeah, but he acknowledged, that scaling that up will take time. It's not an overnight solution.
So it really raises questions about, well, sustainability, doesn't it? Can Ukraine keep defending itself effectively if that international support wavers or becomes less reliable?
That's exactly the question. It highlights just how pivotal that consistent, reliable international support is in shaping where this conflict goes next.
So bringing this all together for you, the listener,
Yeah,
what we've seen here is really a snapshot, isn't it? A conflict still evolving incredibly quickly.
definitely. Intense action on the ground, crucial talks happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, you've got Ukraine showing it can strike deep, really deep into Russia. At the same time, Russia is keeping up this immense pressure with just overwhelming numbers of drones.
And all of this is playing out against that backdrop of, well, vital but maybe uncertain international support and that whole tricky landscape of military aid.
It really does show you the complex layers, the kind of the constantly shifting nature of modern warfare.
It does. And maybe as we consider all this, something to think about is how the balance between offense and defense, striking capability versus stopping attacks, how that balance combined with the sort of ups and downs of international political will,
Yeah.
how that constantly reshapes those hopes for a breakthrough we talked about. What new challenges pop up when both sides show they can sustain this kind of high-intensity fight for so long?
Mm. And how does that change what ending the war or even victory might actually look like down the road?
Exactly. That capacity for prolonged, intense engagement really forces us to reconsider those fundamental questions.